Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. The presentation will begin in a few short seconds. We just want to give attendees a little bit more time to join in. Thank you. All right. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the country. I hope you're having a great Wednesday afternoon. I'd like to thank you for joining us on today's webinar, a simPRO case study, how Proguard Protection Services increased its profit margins by 12%. Today's webinar is sponsored by simPRO. And in today's session, we will learn why Frank Bauer decided to implement an end-to-end business management software solution and how implementing simPRO increased his team's efficiency and profitability. I'm Andrea Morgan, ESA's Marcom specialist, and I will facilitate today's webinar. Before we get started, let's cover a few housekeeping notes. First, all callers will be muted for the duration of this webinar. At any time, please feel free to ask a question by clicking in that section of your control panel. We will ensure we reserve some time at the end of the webinar for a question and answer session with our speakers. Today's webinar will contain a live poll. During this time, you will be able to respond by clicking on the appropriate option on your screen. A recording of this webinar will be made available in the resource library on esaweb.org at the end of today. Without further ado, I'm very excited to introduce to you today's speakers, Glenn Nott and Frank Bauer. As president of simPRO US, Glenn is responsible for launching simPRO into the US market, creating a world-class team to address the growing need that exists in the US for job management software, and scaling simPRO's US footprint across the country. Glenn has significant experience in building and leading cross-functional teams in new and emerging markets, along with a passion for working in competitive, innovative environments. For over 25 years, Glenn has managed businesses with a focus in the area, with a focus in the areas of sales, customer success, marketing, product development, localization, finance, product fulfillment, and sales operations. Frank is an entrepreneur and businessman living in Aspen, Colorado. He is a founder and owner of several companies, including Proguard Protection Services Incorporated, to which he serves as the CEO. Frank also founded and serves as the chairman of the board for Ocean Healing Group, a grassroots nonprofit organization. Proguard is the Aspen and Roaring Fork Valley's leader in electronic security products and systems integration. Family owned and operated since 2001, Frank took over the CEO role from his father in 2011. With over 25 years of experience in the business arena, Frank has always applied and maintained a principle over personality mentality to his work ethic. In 2018, Frank negotiated Proguard's acquisition of Allied Security Group in Breckenridge, Colorado. This acquisition more than doubled Proguard's account base and added a very healthy increase to the recurring monthly revenue. Glenn, Frank, thank you for joining us today. I will now turn it over to you.
Thank you, Andrea, and good morning and good afternoon to everybody on the line. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today and to share this somewhat virtual stage with Frank Bauer from Proguard. As you can all see from our agenda here, myself and Frank will talk a little bit to begin with about our respective companies, but really what we want to do this morning, this afternoon is dive into a few key areas here, and first and foremost is what really prompted Frank and Proguard into researching software solutions at the time that they did. Then to look at the recommendations from Frank's experience on how to pick the right software for your security business, because as I'm sure you all are aware, there's lots of options out there in the marketplace. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about what features actually helped automate Frank and Proguard's processes and better connect the office and field teams together, the growth that Frank has experienced in his business, and then finally look at a few lessons that have been learned from Frank and his business 2 years after they went live with simPRO. So Frank, good morning to you. I know you're up in beautiful Aspen, Colorado at the moment, so perhaps we start off a little bit with you telling us about your business and where you were at in 2014.
Good morning, Glenn. Thanks for having me. 2014 for Proguard was kind of a rebuild year. We were not in a great place financially. We had kind of hit a wall of growth, and we were bleeding money. We were in an integration software that wasn't really helping us that much. And in 2013, we had started off really bad. And midway through the year, we brought in a consulting company, and that consulting company outlined some problems we were having and diagnosed some areas that we needed to grow. So 2014 was in a lot of ways kind of the first year back for us. We were able to stabilize our procedures and strengthen our policies. I think we had a little over $2 million in sales in 2014, about 19 employees. We were only showing probably a 3 to 3.5% profit. We had the work and we had the talent, but we were bogged down with inefficiencies, and there was a human error component to things because we were still running on a very paper-driven operational system where we were relying on our techs and field notes, and there was just a lot of human error that was happening, and we were losing money in that through inventory and through non-billable hours. We were also having a hard time managing our projects and turning them into profitable new construction projects.
Okay, great. Thanks for that background, Frank. And I know we're going to dive into Proguard and your history in a little bit more detail as we go this morning. Folks, a little bit of background about simPRO, and I won't dwell too much on this because, as I said, the focus of this presentation is more about Proguard and what we've been doing together. But to share with you a little bit of background, simPRO is an organization that's been in business for about 17 or 18 years. It was founded in 2002 by an electrician back in Brisbane, Australia. For those of you who know where Brisbane is, it's in the northern part of the country, beautiful part of Australia. And this individual, Steve Bradshaw, the founder, was experiencing some problems and some issues with his business and turned to a friend of his who was a developer and a coder, and simPRO was started way back then, and Steve then started to share that software with his mates, as we'd refer to them back in Australia, and it kind of grew from there. We now have over 4,000 companies worldwide using simPRO, with over 100,000 users online. We have offices in the UK, Australia, as I mentioned, and New Zealand. And we came to the US a couple of years ago now. You can probably tell from my accent, I'm Australian, but I've been living out here in the US for over 10 years. So I didn't come with the simPRO legacy. I'd worked for US companies for many, many years, running businesses for those US companies. But we're growing incredibly quickly here in the US. We typically say that our software fits 5 key verticals. That's plumbing, electrical, solar, HVAC, and the fire and security industry. And I like to refer to the bullseye on the dartboard as the fire and security industry, and hence the reason why we're talking to all of you today about what we've been doing with Proguard and specifically with Frank and his team. So at this point in time, before we launch into some of the challenges that Frank had when he started to introduce software into his business, we thought we'd take a quick poll. So Andrea, over to you to get that one kick-started.
Okay, I am launching the poll now. The question is, what is your biggest challenge? Pick one of the options: Office of Field Communications, job costing, scheduling and dispatching, inventory control, collecting RMR. All right, we'll keep it open for a few more seconds to let everybody have some time to respond. All right. Still getting responses, so I'll keep it open a little bit longer. Okay, and I will close the poll now. Okay, 52% office to field communications, 0% for job costing, 10% for scheduling and dispatching, 19% for both inventory control and collecting RMR. We're back to you, Glenn.
Yes, thank you, Andrea. Thank you, everybody, for participating. So, Frank, based on that, what prompted you when you started your search for software? What really sort of drove you to start looking around at options?
In the old business sense was you would staff according to how stressed or how busy you were. So our old approach was when everybody in the office started yelling at each other and had too much work to do, then we would just hire more people. So you just kept throwing more labor at the problem, hoping that you could, reach a magical number of employees that would satisfy the work. But when you look at tech startup companies today, the first thing they do is build a software program to run their company, and then they staff according to what they need to run the software. And they'll start, with a parameter saying, this software will grow the company from 1 client to 5,000 clients, or from, where we're currently at whatever, 10,000 clients to 50,000 clients. And then you'll staff appropriately to cover that. And that's kind of the mentality I went into, because I was tired of just hiring more people because I had more work, and more people is not the answer. It means more human error. It means more inefficiency. It means more redundancies. And that's what we were seeing. And so what I wanted was the consulting firm had strongly recommended that our software get updated. And so I kind of made a list of what I wanted, and I started looking. And what I found out there in the industry at the time was companies that did some things really good and then didn't do other things so well, or didn't do other things at all. I had, a great software company that had a lot of value to it, but they had no field, no field mobility app. There was other ones that were really good at sales and proposal generating, but really fell off when it came to integrating with your accounting software or managing inventory. And so I kept thinking I had to settle. And then that's when I found simPRO. And as I went through all of the assets that simPRO had and all of the different ways that it could help me, I realized that it really satisfied everything that was on my list. The problem was that you guys weren't in the U.S. yet, and that presented an issue. I remember calling simPRO in Australia and saying, "Hey, I want to sign up," and they were like, "Yeah, we're not really in the U.S. yet." And so, and then I got a call back and got by one of the founders and got asked if I wanted to join a pilot program to sort of help the U.S. build, which was a great experience. And I think it's one of the reasons why I care about the software is because I got to watch it develop and watch. And I think I was the third company and maybe the first security company to sign up with it. So, but it really, the reason I chose you guys is because you had exactly what I wanted.
Well, thanks for taking a punt with us when we were way back there in Australia, Frank. But I think you jokingly may be the reason why we ended up in Colorado. not a bad place.
I'm happy that you did.
So, Frank, just in terms of finding the right software, and I said sort of in my opening comments that there is a plethora of software companies out there and different options available, and you even alluded to and referred to a couple of them yourself. You decided to implement a software platform. What made you choose simPRO? And again, given the fact that we weren't even in the US when you made that decision.
Well, like I said, you guys had that list that, you satisfied the list of things that I needed and wanted in a software. And then more than that was the customer service in working with your team. Even though there was a large time difference between Colorado and Australia, the fact that you guys your customer support and customer service and through the implementation process, I had a good feeling that this was going to be a software that I could implement and just felt like that, based on what I had seen out there, there wasn't a whole lot of options that covered the scale of what you guys did. Yeah, when you're looking for something like this is a big investment. Integrating software is a huge investment in time and money to anybody's company. And so I really feel like that doing the homework about what's out there really led me down the path of simPRO, because I didn't want to put this type of time and energy and finances into a project that I didn't feel could truly cover what I wanted, not just what I needed at the time, but would allow me to grow my company and grow in my software. And that was really a big part of choosing simPRO. Was I saw a lot of growth potential, and I saw the markets that had been dominated by you guys already on the other side of the pond. And by coming to the U.S., it was an exciting time.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, thanks, Frank. And you mentioned a couple of times there, customer service. One of the things that you've heard me and many of our customers here in the US, upwards now of about 160 odd in various locations right across the country, have heard me say that we want to be renowned for the customer experience that we provide our customers. This isn't a straightforward decision and an easy decision that organizations make. And we want to make sure that customer engagement experience is beautiful from the very first moment that we engage with an organization, right through to implementation and ongoing support. And having a team here now, Frank, hopefully you've seen this and experienced it, but having a team here now in the United States has really lift the ante and the level of customer experience we provide our customers.
Absolutely. And especially having a team right down the road from me.
And to that point, Frank, about that, a lot of this also, particularly when you're introducing new software, change management can be difficult. And in a lot of times, you are experiencing a change in your processes, not so much in your workflows, but certainly in the way in which you're doing business. How did you yourself prepare, and then how did you help your team prepare for that change?
It's a good question. Well, I definitely saw the need. I definitely saw the numbers that the company had, and I saw where we were hurting, and I saw where we needed to change. And I think that being transparent with that with the officers of the company was a big part of starting that process. They weren't they weren't really excited about the idea of right in the middle of us having a very difficult year of stopping what we were doing and start rebuilding under a new software platform. And it's obviously, it takes a lot of dedication, and it's a commitment. I had to ask my officers and my employees to really step up for this. And but I think good leadership is that the way it worked is that I told them what I thought that we needed, and I told them that where we wanted to go, and they followed. And so it was difficult, and I encouraged them through the process, and we worked a lot of late nights. And implementing any software program isn't easy, but the benefits are so worth it. I would do it again tomorrow. So I was able to get the rest of the team on board, and really they were inspired. Once we kind of started the process, they saw the potential and the videos that are online, and in working with the simPRO implementation team. They even before we started implementing, they saw what the software could do, and they saw how it could change the company. And once I was able to present it that way, they realized that all the hard work would pay off, and it has.
Yeah. You said that a couple of times, Frank, that it was hard work, it was tough, it was painful at times, and there's probably even an element of resistance from your team, on that change that you went through. And you said you'd do it all over again. Just for everybody on the line, for you, Frank, how long was that duration of pain and toughness? Was it a week? Probably not. Was it a month or a couple of months?
Well, and this isn't to reflect poorly on you, Glenn, or your company, but because it was, No, because you guys were in the middle of creating the build, when we implemented Proguard in 14, it took a better part of a year, but there was a lot of changes that had to happen in the build along the way. Like I remember, you guys sent me the build, and I went in and I set up my first client, and this was a trial run. You guys were sending me something just to play with, and I set up a client, and I called you guys up, and I said, hey, I can't change the tax codes. And you guys said, oh, well, why would you need to change the tax code? And I said, what do you mean? And I think the answer was, you guys said, well, look, in Australia, we only have one tax code for the whole country. And my comment back was, in America, you can't drive 15 minutes without going through 3 different tax code areas. And so, at that point, we had to sort of slow down, and you guys went to work on revamping the accounting side of it to allow for a more flexible tax code entry process for setting up clients. And so, the first company I did with Proguard and simPRO, it took around a year. The second company, I'm almost done, and I'm 3 months.
Yeah.
And we bought Allied last June, and we didn't integrate right away. We had to do some other stuff. We had to stabilize that business and really get a feel for how it operates. And then we went in late December, and we started implementing simPRO, and we're almost completely done now. So our hope is to be done by the end of the month, and then we're going to implement into Xero. And so the process now for this second company, which literally had to be done the exact same way as the first, was dramatically faster and easier.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that, Frank. And as you know, we've learned a lot along the ways. The last 2 years since having legs on the ground here in the US, we've now really established what we need for this marketplace and understand this marketplace a lot better than when we did just operating out of Brisbane, Australia.
Yeah.
And Frank, I know when you originally bought the software from simPRO, there were a handful of elements and pain points that you were trying to solve and address. And since using simPRO, and the more you and the team use it, you start to use more and more features and functions of the solution. But once you were up and running, what features really made an impact for your workflows or your business in general?
Automating the processes and better connection and communication between the office and the field was a huge part of it. We all of a sudden realized that our technicians in the field had access to information and historic information about our clients that they had never had before, and they were able to really streamline their efforts and their ability to problem solve based on historic information. When you have all your customer assets available to both the office and the field together, it saves a ton of time in helping to resolve those issues, and also for creating new quotes. The techs in the field can now see every asset that the customer has and can see a history of those assets to see if an issue that they're dealing with is a repetitive issue, or to see if it's kind of a first-time kind of one-off problem. I also ran into the issue. It used to be that I had certain technicians that knew certain jobs, and they were the only ones that I could send out to that job because they were the only one that really knew it. And that presented a real headache in my calendar and my scheduling, because I could get an emergency call, and there was only one guy I could send because he had been there the last 4 times, and he was the only one that knew how to fix it. But now with the assets properly loaded and a history of service, I can send any technician out there, and they can review the project and see what's been done to help affect a better change in the service. Sales proposals are also easy to generate and have parameters, and that would ensure that every job sold can be profitable. That was a big part of. We sort of ran where we would sell a job, we would do the work. Afterwards, we would count up all the hours we spent, and we would look at the quote or look at the proposal, and then we'd figure out whether we went over budget or under, and whether we made money or not. And that's not an effective way to run, a new construction or new client operation. But I didn't have the ability to in real time view what was happening, and now with simPRO I do. So every week we can log into each project, and our projects can run between 6 months to 8 months, or let's say between 2 months to 8 months long. So being able to remotely look into each one of them and see where we stand with that project and make sure that all of them stay in the green, that's a big deal. Unfortunately, prior I was losing money on jobs and not really knowing why until the end. I would tally it all up and go, holy cow, I lost money on this project. What happened? I'd pull the technician in, and only then I'd hear, well, he had me doing a lot of extra work out there, or I added some stuff. But I forgot to write a change order. So those issues were really slowing us down. And now with project management and job costing, I can really focus on that and make sure that all of my new construction projects come out profitable. Another big benefit was in-field change orders. My technicians, it was sent out to do a service call. Let's say he's out to service a flood detector, change out a battery in a flood, and while he's there, the client says, I'd like to add another flood to this area. He can quickly add that flood right in through his phone to a change order on that. He can assign labor, although labor is suggested by simPRO based on each piece of equipment that is sold. So he can look at the recommended labor, or he can override that, and then he can show the client how much extra it's going to be to add that. The client can sign the phone. He can do the work. The client can sign when he's done that the work's been completed, and then that automatically invoices. So I don't have a fear of losing inventory and losing time in the field, but my technicians being too busy to remember to write something down on a service ticket of what they added. So that was a big change order, or that was a big change in dealing with change orders. Another thing that happened with us was we were not really effectively tracking the time. I would be lucky if I could get 5 hours, maybe really lucky if I could get 6 hours of billable time out of each 8-hour workday per employee, because I wasn't able to track what my guys were doing and really recognize how much time they were spending driving or in the office and so forth. So one of the things that simPRO does that's amazing is it can track travel time and work time separately. And so when a technician leaves the office to head up to his first job, he can hit a button that says start travel time, and then it tracks that time. And then when he gets into the driveway, he can switch that over to work time and start his work time. And based on that, the data I get back, I'm really able to effectively manage how much time my guys are spending that's non-billable. And we've noticed a large increase in that. I think we're billing now averaging between 6.5 and 7.25 hours for every 8-hour day. We didn't have that capability before because you just didn't know what the problem was. SimTrack has also helped out with that a lot as well, which is the GPS side, because when an emergency call comes in, instead of just randomly picking a tech to go there, I can look on a screen and see which technician is closest to that house, and I can dispatch that tech, and that really cuts down in drive time, which also, again, keeps you in more billable time, because the name of the game is how many billable hours can I get each day. Fleet management and tracking was, like I said, was definitely a big part of that. Not just managing, where my techs are going, but also keeping an eye on where they shouldn't be. I didn't realize before I started with SimTrack that my technicians were clocking in the morning at the office and then running across the street on the clock to grab a breakfast burrito at the corner shop and hang out and talk with a few other subs for 10-15 minutes every morning, and then they'd get in their car and make their way to their first job. And it doesn't sound like 10 minutes is a big deal, but when you have 9 techs and they're doing that several times a week, it really adds up. And so once we put sim tracking in place, we were able to really see what our techs were doing when they left the office, and we were able to put a geofence around that little corner burrito store. And now if any of my technicians' trucks go in there, I get an alert. And once I made them aware that wasn't going to be acceptable anymore, it's amazing now that they actually eat breakfast before they clock in. And once they leave the office, they go right to the job site. So that was a big deal.
So Frank, I'm guessing being based in Aspen, you also geofence the ski slopes, do you?
I do. The ski slopes and a few other stores that we won't talk about given the legality of our state here. But the last thing I'll say is this: the data that I get, this was a big benefit to me to be able to effectively lead a company of 30 employees. I need to have good data and I need to have good reporting. And my CEO dashboard is chock full of simPRO data that comes in that I can use to quickly view what's happening with my company, and see where the bottlenecking is happening. I mean, my company still gets bottlenecking problems. We still have, a department that gets behind because they get inundated with work or something happens or an employee's sick, or we still have real-time issues like that. But now I can see that, and I can affect that change by going in and saying, what resources do you need for me to bring this up and to help you get caught back up again? So my job is really now to sort of review that and watch the company kind of from a distance in a lot of ways. And also from that distance, I get to actually watch and show and figure out how to grow that company, how to push it in the direction that I want it to go. And before, I was inundated with daily tasks. I had to sign checks. I had to approve orders. I was doing daily tasks every day. And now most of those have been delegated to my team, and I get to actually view the company, from the outside a little bit, which is the best place for me to be able to push it in the direction of growth I want it to go. And that's because of the data I get from simPRO.
And I've heard you say this before, Frank, and I hear it all the time from our customers that the visibility that you're able to achieve is paramount as well, and getting everybody in your office and the techs out in the field all on the same page, all kind of singing from the same songbook, so to speak, is really important too, correct?
Absolutely. The communication between the field and the office is so vital to the work that we do. It really affects every aspect of business, from customer service to billable time, and managing inventory. And so once everybody was on board, as the data came in, you really can't change and grow until you know exactly what your problems are. And I think that a good software program naturally by default outlines the realistic and honest answer of what is wrong with my company. What are the issues that are slowing me down? And once you are armed with that info, then you can go out and affect the change you need. So, and that starts by having, because really our companies are two different animals. You've got the field and then you've got the office. And man, sometimes they just, go back and forth. Sometimes they don't communicate at all. There's so much disconnect that can happen there. But simPRO really brings that all together. When you have the right information and available to everybody, it really helps the process.
Yeah. So Frank, we spoke a little bit about the features and some of the pain points you had and the reasons why you initially purchased simPRO on the software. But how did some of those changes in processes impact your business? And I guess more importantly for you and everybody on the line, really important about profitability and profits and numbers in general.
Yeah, because that's really the bottom line. Anybody who's on the line right now is hoping that whatever they hear today is going to get them into having more money, because that's the goal of this, to run a successful and profitable company. I don't know what the industry average is. I know that a 3% profit for me in 2014 was that was not going to allow me to grow the way I wanted it to. And since implementing simPRO in 2014, we've seen as you can see, a very steady growth. And this is on a 42-month average. Our actual 2018 numbers were closer to 18% profit on the year. But when you add in the 42-month average, it definitely brings it down. But it also shows a lot of stability, which is nice, because you're going to have high and low years, and this really averages it out a lot. So, but we did see substantial growth every year since implementing simPRO, and not just in overall sales, but in tech productivity, in employee well-being, and client retention. Average RMR has gone up significantly because our sales department is really armed with a great ability to create beautiful and easy to work with proposals and upgrade capabilities to the clients. And so we've seen, I look at growth on several sectors. Obviously, number of accounts is a big one. Profit is a big one. But average RMR is huge. And for a lot of companies in the U.S. today, average RMR is becoming one of the more important things to consider when you're looking at how much growth you're doing, because we're in a unique time right now where we can increase RMR using integrated services. And even though we maybe some clients or some companies out there are losing clients, I hear that they're increasing their RMR, and that's offsetting and sometimes still allowing them to grow. With us, really, once we were able to stabilize so much of the things that were holding us back, that growth was inevitable, because when you're billing more and you're not losing money on jobs and you don't need to hire more employees to grow the company. I think that at the time in 2014, we were probably 16 employees, and now we're 30. But that's because of the acquisition added a lot of that. But we were also probably only, I'm not going to talk about number of accounts that we have, but we have more than, we've tripled our account base since then, with the acquisitions and with organic growth. And I never used to have time to do things like marketing, 5-year budget comparisons, biz development work. Nobody had time to do that. We all had our job to do, and we barely had enough time to get it done. And so now that we've integrated software, some of my accounting department used to be two full-time people, and after simPRO, it went down to one part-time person. And thank goodness that part-time person had great marketing skills and education. So she also picked up and became a marketing guru for us with her extra time. So, that allowed us to move into areas that I had never really considered, like how to brand the company and how to market properly, and how to view my competition and really compare and grow accordingly. So I think that what I'd say to anybody listening is that you'll be amazed with how much extra time you're going to have for your employees when you have a software that takes away the redundancy and takes away the human error side and takes away the need to audit everything that happens. All of a sudden, you arm your people with enough time to do their work, and then have time left over that you can utilize, which is great.
Frank, I just wanted to touch on one particular area that you mentioned there was growth in RMR. And I know that's important for you. It's important for the security industry as a whole. But, when organizations like yours, go to meet with financial advisors or bankers and start to have a look at, the financial health of your business, obviously that's very important. What value do those third parties, those bankers, those financial institutions, what value do they put on having all of your ducks in a row financially, so to speak, Frank, when they look at the health of your business?
Oh, it's huge. Most lenders out there today, they really prefer working with companies that can provide the type of data and have the type of stability that can be created through having integrated software. My particular lender was very excited about the software that we use and how it integrates with our accounting software. They were very excited about the reporting we were able to do. They're in our field. Whenever you're looking at an acquisition, inevitably you're going to go through a field audit report, and our field auditor, who's very well known in the industry and has done this for years, he came out, surveyed our business, and looked at stuff and looked at our numbers and at our reports, and he was very happy and wrote in his report that it was a well-run company with great knowledge of the financial well-being of the business and growth potential, and so. Obviously, banks want to lend money to a responsible borrower, And if anybody out there is looking at doing acquisitions, before you can, go and ask for that, before you can step into that arena, you really need to make sure that your business is stable, that how it's running, and that you can answer very, very serious questions from the lender about your capability and your growth. I would not have been in a position to do an acquisition last year, and we're actually looking at another acquisition right now. My goal is to do hopefully a couple acquisitions in the next couple of years. There's no way I would be in that position to do that without implementing simPRO.
Yeah.
It really stabilized my business so much and turned so much. Really, by the increase of profits, it put me in a position to be and to look on paper as a responsible borrower, and that's what the banks want to see. So if you're going to get into that acquisition realm, you need to show a strong business.
Yep. So Frank, fast forward, you've now been using simPRO for almost 5 years now. What really surprised you, or what benefit did you get from using the software that you didn't expect? We spoke about some of the pain points you had and what you were trying to address, but what have you come out with 5 years later on that you didn't expect?
That's a good question. It's I think when you're making a decision like this, for me, my experience was that I made a list of what I wanted, and had I just gotten that, I would have sold myself really short, because there were so many extra benefits that I got through the process that I didn't even know that I wanted or that I needed. And one of those is, I didn't expect that my employees were going to be we're going to have such a less stressful life because of this. My employee happiness is very important to me, and I didn't realize before implementing software how stressed their job was. I mean, I knew that they were stressed, but I didn't really get it. And watching their overall well-being now and seeing how much less stressful they are and how much happier they are is an amazing benefit that I really wasn't expecting. And I also really didn't expect to grow and prosper as much as I have and as much as the company has. I knew that it was a great return on investment, and I knew that it was an important asset to be able to ensure future growth of the company, and especially in our changing industry. But I don't think it really hit me as to, wow, like, you're going to have a lot of extra money every year. Like, what are you going to do with that? Like, that was shocking to me as it came around. As every year we grew more and more, and we even started in a profit sharing procedure with all employees. So now every employee of the company receives profit sharing, and that was something that we were able to do because we actually had profits that we could share, and that really, that means a lot to our employees. It created loyalty. It created a higher level of dedication, and the owners really feel like that they have that they have a part of this, that they are a part of this. I didn't expect that I would need to move into a bigger office. That was something that happened last year. That was a big pain in the but that's what happens with growth. We outgrew our old place, which had been our place for 6 years, and we outgrew it in about a year of growth. We needed to relocate, and I also, for me personally, as the owner of Proguard, and the son of a workaholic who I started the company with, I watched my father run this company from 2001 all the way until I took over in 2011. And I watched his work ethic, and it was just nonstop, 60 hours a week, hardly any vacations. He just worked and worked and worked. And he had to, because he had so many daily tasks that had to get done, because he had a hard time delegating responsibility. He was very controlling, a great businessman, but still a very old school business mentality. And, I didn't want that. I didn't want to be a workaholic. And I've got 2 daughters. They're 4 and 7, soon to be 8. And I wanted to spend more time with my family than my father had spent with us when I was growing up. And you know, that was a goal of mine, but I wanted it, but I didn't know how achievable it would be. But now I'm amazed at how much time I actually get to take away from work, and how much time I get to spend with my family. So I really, you know, Glenn, you probably saved my marriage in a handful of ways, because had I not implemented simPRO, my wife probably would have left me for all the work that I would be doing at the office every day. And now instead I get to go home and enjoy my family time and go on lots of vacations with my kids and watch them grow up. And, you know, that's a big deal. So not only do I get a more profitable company, but I don't have to be as involved as much. So I can't think of a whole lot better than that.
Yeah, and you know what, Frank, I appreciate you saying that, and we hear that a lot from business owners who are that entrenched in their business that they don't have enough time to be able to take a break and you spend time with their spouse and their kids and their family. So it's yes, that's you know, right up there, and it's, I guess it goes back to that mantra of, you know, living to work, not working to live, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So Frank, just before we wrap up here, what advice would you give other security business owners that are thinking about implementing a new software solution, or perhaps they've even got a software solution today that's not, you know, meeting all of their requirements?
Oh, I mean, you know, in this industry, chances are your competitors are either already using software to grow or are planning and implementing it very soon. If you're worried out there that, you know, where do I fit in with the national chains and the national brands growing like they are in the future of our industry, know that every company that comes into your market or every competitor that you have, the majority of them, if not all of them, are going to implement into software at one point or another. And because they do that, their processes, their procedures, their communications with the field, their billable hours, their profits are all gonna grow and get better because of that. And all that does is make them stronger competitors to you, because they'll have more time to go out there and go after your clients. And so I honestly believe that this isn't a option, really. I think that if you're in this industry and a halfway savvy business person, you have to realize that software is truly what separates the great companies from the mediocre ones. And if you have a fear of making that implementation, or a fear of the time or the resources it takes to get into something like this, I believe that you're probably going to slowly lose accounts and find yourself in a worse position every year. However, I think that implementing software like this can really, it can have such a dramatic increase on your bottom line and on your business growth that it can really keep you very at the top of your competitive market. So I would say that, you know, either get on board with software. And look, I'm not a salesman for simPRO. I love simPRO. It was the right software for me. It may not be the right software for everybody, but get into something. If you're still printing out paper service tickets on Excel spreadsheets, if you're still using a 10-year-old version of QuickBooks, if you're still, you know, having, you know, field notes written down in chicken Scrabble by your technicians on a piece of paper and hopefully getting it back to your office, like, change. You got to grow if you're going to keep up in this industry. It's a difficult industry, and you need every advantage you can get. Any type of implemented software will give you an advantage. I just believe that simPRO is the most comprehensive. And Glenn, this is, in all honesty, I've been in business on my own for almost 25 years. I've had 4 or 5 different companies. As you mentioned, I run a nonprofit. I get to be blessed to be a part of. And so I love the business arena. And I can actually say with absolute confidence that deciding to go with simPRO and implementing simPRO is the single most important and most powerful. It's by far the best decision that I've ever made in business in 24 years of being in business. So I don't say that lightly, because I think that I'm pretty egotistical when it comes to accomplishments. So for me to say that it's because of you that I can sit here and have this conversation and say that your software it's the best decision I've ever made. So if you're out there and you're contemplating this, get on board, because your competitors are going to do it. And if you're that afraid, call me. Maybe I'll buy your accounts and I'll put them on simPRO.
Well, thanks, Frank, and just generally, thank you very much for the input into the presentation. I think I'd probably speak on behalf of everybody that's listening here. Great insight, great to be able to share your knowledge and experience, and I appreciate that. At this point, we'll turn over to Andrea, our moderator, and I think you were going to throw it open for questions, Andrea.
Yes. Okay, callers, we hope you found this content to be informative. We will now open the floor for questions. We already have a few, but if you have a question and you haven't yet typed it in your control panel, please feel free to do that now. Some of the questions have already been addressed, so I will ask questions that may or may not have been addressed. One attendee is asking, since over 50% of the listeners said that field communications was one of their challenges, is it possible to see the system and how it can affect growth and see what kind of strategies it would help to implement? Is that possible?
I'm thinking that question is, are they able to actually have a look at the software itself and be able to talk to one of our representatives? Absolutely. I've just clicked forward here on the slide deck. You can contact us at info@simpro.us or give us a call on 855-338-6041 if that's the question that was asked. By all means, have a chat to our experienced consultants.
Perfect. Someone else is saying that they are not a large company, but is very interested in software like this. Just wanting to know like pricing structure, and if this is something that they can afford being a smaller company.
Yeah, I'll answer that directly, and then Frank, you might want to answer as well, because you certainly weren't the size that you are now when you first became a simPRO customer. But our audience here in the United States is typically organizations that employ between 2 and 50 employees. And that's just a general, when I look at the profile of our customer base. So we do cater for small to medium businesses. Having said that, we also have quite a few larger customers who employ hundreds of people. So we do kind of follow the gamut. We'd like to think our pricing, based on the feedback we get from our customers, is very competitive and beneficial, and the return on that investment is quite high. But yes, we do cater for a very broad range and size of organizations. Frank?
No, absolutely. It is a seat-based fee. So, you pay for how many seats you need. So it's directly proportionate to how many employees you have. So if you only have 2 employees, you're going to pay a lot less for the software than someone who has 10. As a matter of fact, you'll pay 1/5 as it rounds out. So I think that because of that, I can't imagine a company out there that couldn't afford to implement this software. In fact, I would come back to that and say, I don't think you can afford not to implement this software at this stage of the game in our industry.
Awesome. I have a question directly for you, Frank. Have you gone totally paperless?
That's a great question. Yes. In between our field techs and our office, we are completely paperless. My techs carry no paper with them. All they need is their phone, and they can log in and see their schedule for the day. They can go from one call to another. Their GPS lines them up with the nav in their car through SimTrack to take them to and from each job as they go throughout the day. All notes and asset updates are put up into the cloud and sent right to simPRO. So as they're pulling away from the driveway, I can already see the notes of the work they've done. From an invoicing standpoint, we still have some clients that prefer paper invoices because we work with a lot of property management companies, and so they don't really want emails. but we have a Go Green program for billing, and a majority of our clients that we bill directly, they're paperless as well. So I would say that we're probably 85 to 90% paperless, but we still have some clients that prefer paper billing. But the automated invoicing that happens in simPRO is pretty amazing. When you can walk in the door and just press a button and print out all recurring invoices for a period of time, whether it's a month, so on the first of every month or the first of every quarter, however it is, you press a button and automate that invoicing, and that really is incredible, because you can automate it, or you can it will generate those invoices and either A, email them directly to the client, or B, print them in hard version if you need to mail them out. So I didn't talk a lot about recurring revenue invoicing, and it is absolutely amazing through simPRO.
All right, next question. Does this software integrate with QuickBooks?
Yes, it does. Two-way integration, so simPRO pushes information and financial data into QuickBooks, and then it comes back through QuickBooks. Now, Frank doesn't use QuickBooks in his business. He uses Xero, but we also integrate with Xero as well.
Okay, I see one more question. Okay, I see another one that just came in. One second. This question might be probably best answered personally, but I will ask it. We are current users of simPRO. We need help getting our simPRO system set up to process in-state use tax. We are currently using it for sales tax, but need to be able to set it up for multiple customer types and multiple tax types.
I would ask that existing simPRO customer to reach out to our support desk, either via chat or via phone, and we will certainly be able to help you address that one.
Awesome. And it appears like that is the last question, and we are right at our time. So, if that's all, I would like to thank Glenn and Frank for being with us this afternoon, this morning, and thank you to all of our attendees for sharing your valuable time with us this afternoon. As a reminder, a recording of this webinar will be available at esaweb.org in the resource library. Thank you all for participating. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.